Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. I want to talk about the Golden State Warriors. I've been talking a lot about the Pacers for the past couple days, and that's because of the Pascal Siakam stuff. But I do cover other NBA teams. I don't just cover the Pacers, even though it's arguable that, you know, if I only covered the Pacers on my channel, it would probably be better for my growth, but regardless, I like to follow the entire league. So, I want to talk about the Warriors because they are currently 12th in the West with a record of 18-22, and they're a team that I expect to be very active around the trade deadline. They have a bunch of guys that they would like to get off of. Honestly, Steph Curry is kind of balling by himself. I'm not going to lie. Steph Curry is a man on a mission by himself this year. Steph Curry shooting 44% from the field, 39% from three, and 92% from the free throw line on about 27 a game, 26.7 points per game, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds. But the problem is he ain't getting help from fucking nobody, okay? Klay Thompson is only averaging 17 a game. He's shooting 38% from three and 90% from the free throw line, but 42% from the field, leaves a lot to be desired, with 2.5 assists and 3.5 rebounds a game. Klay Thompson's a guy with 1 year left on his deal. It's got $43 million on it, and I'm just going to be honest, Klay Thompson's going to be hard to move. I think, like, as much as the Golden State Warriors would like to get something for Klay Thompson, I have a feeling he's going to be a guy that they're shopping at the deadline, regardless or if they want to, or he wants him to or not. They're going to be fielding calls on Klay Thompson. The problem is, though, Klay Thompson is having what I would consider to be a down year, and I think most of us would. And he gets paid a whole ass ton of money, and honestly, you know, it's hard to take on $43 million worth of cap space for a guy that's not worth it. The only teams that I could see maybe moving off of some bad contracts for a guy like Klay Thompson is like the Orlando Magic. Maybe they would like to get maybe something for, like, I don't know, Jonathan Isaac's contract plus Gary Harris or Markelle Fultz. They're really the only team that I think could trade for Klay Thompson, and have a justifiable reason for doing it. And the thing is, like, even if the Warriors were to trade Klay Thompson to the Orlando Magic, I kind of think, like, the Orlando Magic are going to be reluctant to give up any young talent. You know what I'm saying? They're only going to want to give up old guys or guys that they're not interested in keeping anymore. Jonathan Isaac automatically is a guy that comes to my mind because he's not even seeing playing time, and he's got a sizable contract that could fit in there for that. But also, like, Klay Thompson's not a guy that I think would re-sign with them. So really, it would be like a salary dump move, and the Warriors getting a guy like Jonathan Isaac in hopes that he can maybe become something along the lines of Andrew Wiggins or Draymond Green or even Jonathan Kuminga. Only because the fact of the matter is, like, Jonathan Kuminga is not a guy that I see the Warriors keeping either. He's a guy that I see moving. Andrew Wiggins has been abysmal this year. I mean, fucking historically bad. And Draymond Green is just getting older. He's 33. Jonathan Isaac's 26. Obviously, Jonathan Isaac has a bunch of injury concerns, but if you're the Golden State Warriors, I feel like Jonathan Isaac was always a guy that, potentially could have offered a whole lot more than we've seen out of him because of, obviously, injury reasons. I think he tore his Achilles, I think he tore his Achilles twice, if I'm correct. But maybe the Warriors would be interested in a player like that simply because he's a lot younger than most of the guys on their roster. So that's one guy that I look at and I'm like, maybe they'd be interested in him. Andrew Wiggins is a guy they're looking to move off of. I'm going to be honest. If the Golden State Warriors could move Andrew Wiggins for a guy like DeMar DeRozan, I think they should do it. Obviously, the Chicago Bulls would like to get younger. DeMar DeRozan's 34. Andrew Wiggins is 28. Maybe if you're Chicago, you take on Andrew Wiggins and see if maybe you can revive his career. The Chicago Bulls really ain't doing shit anyway. And on top of it, like, DeRozan's not coming back. At least if you give DeRozan to the Warriors, maybe like you help them out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Get it. At least you're not trading him into the East of all places. And you give Stephen Curry another bona fide 20-point per game scorer, which he's simply not getting out of Andrew Wiggins anymore. As far as defense goes, Andrew Wiggins is really fallen off a cliff as well. I would argue at this point in his career, DeMar DeRozan at 34 is a better defender than Andrew Wiggins at 28. But Andrew Wiggins has a lot of years and a lot of money left on his contract. Ever since he had that personal issue last year, Andrew Wiggins simply hasn't been the same guy. So if you're the Warriors and you could maybe, like, I'm going to be honest, maybe you throw in Jonathan Kuminga, right? Like, if you're the Warriors, maybe you throw in Jonathan Kuminga with the Andrew Wiggins in this and get DeMar DeRozan, at least give Chicago something. I don't know if that trade really works out on paper, but it sounds good. I think it would. I could see the salaries lining up within the specified range. But if you're the Warriors, if you could acquire a guy like DeMar DeRozan, I feel like that would be really, really huge for them. Mostly because they desperately need to put a number 2 guy around Curry. Draymond Green has been injured. Well, not injured, but he's been out for obviously like the fighting reasons and stuff like that. He had to go through some counseling shit. But Draymond Green's actually having a really good year. I mean, he's played 16 games. He started for 15 of them. He's shooting 49% from the field, 44% from 3, which I never thought I'd be saying about Draymond Green. 84% from the free throw line. He's averaging 9.5 points, about 6 assists, and 5.5 rebounds a game, while still, zero. He's not the same guy on the defensive end, really, but averaging 0.7 blocks, which is the second highest of his career, and 0.4 steals a game. But I'm gonna be honest, they have a lot of bad contracts. Like, that's where the Warriors are at. They need to unload Andrew Wiggins. They need to unload Chris Paul if they can. Really, I don't know. Honestly, Chris Paul is probably a buyout candidate. I'm going to call it what it is. Like, his contract next year is only partially guaranteed. I don't know if it'll be this year, but it'll probably be next year that they buy him out. If anything, they're going to probably try to trade him this year. But the fact of the matter is, like, they don't really have anybody that the rest of the league values. A lot of people would say, like, Klay Thompson's 33. I think a lot of people would say Klay Thompson's best years are officially behind him. Jonathan Kuminga's a nice player, but he's not like spectacular. He's a guy that doesn't want to play for Steve Kerr anymore. Andrew Wiggins has fallen off a cliff. Chris Paul's contract is dog shit. And really, it's like Gary Payton II's injured. I mean, their entire roster is a mess. I would argue if they could at least get people that'll play meaningful minutes for them, it could be a world of difference. Obviously, like, they're like guys like Herb Jones, you know what I'm saying? Like Herb Jones is out there. Trey Murphy III is out there. DeJounte Murray is out there, but I really don't know if, Atlanta would be willing to take on a guy like Andrew Wiggins or, something like that. Honestly, the only way they can trade for a guy like DeJounte Murray's if they include Jonathan Kuminga and maybe Brandon Podziemski or a Moses Moody, somebody like that. Gary Payton II's a guy that he's injured all the time. Like, it just, their team's a fucking mess. Like, not only are they riddled with injuries, but Draymond Green had his shit happen. The team's a fucking mess. And they're going to be active around the trade deadline. Honestly, they're a team that should maybe pursue a guy like Doug McDermott. Or a guy like Buddy Hield, even if they can. Like, I obviously, as a Pacers fan, they don't really have anybody that I give a shit about, but they're probably going to be a team that would pursue a guy like Buddy Hield, especially with Klay Thompson being on an expiring deal. But this is a team that needs to get Stephen Curry some help. Stephen Curry's 35. I get it, Stephen Curry's had a pretty good run, but the fact of the matter is, like, Stephen Curry has a really big contract, and I have a feeling that the Warriors are going to, at the very least, try to make something work here with Stephen Curry because, obviously, like, they're trying to be competitive. I don't think Draymond Green is going to leave. I don't think Stephen Curry is going to leave. Moses Moody, I think, is safe. I even think Gary Payton II is safe. Trace Jackson Davis is safe. Like there's certain guys on their roster. Brandon Podziemski is definitely safe. Like if Klay Thompson doesn't re-sign with the Warriors, it's because Brandon Podziemski has been fucking amazing. Okay, Brandon Podziemski is shooting 45% from the field, 39% from three. The free throw percentage is not really that great, 61%. You wish it was better, but Brandon Podziemski is averaging about 9 points a game and 5.5 rebounds. He's a guy that I look at and I'm just like, yeah, like he's averaging about 3.3 assists a game, 1 steal, not an amazing blocker by any means, but Brandon Podziemski is going to be Klay Thompson's replacement. So the one good thing here though is like, you know, if they could move Andrew Wiggins for a guy like DeMar DeRozan and then let Klay Thompson's contract expire at the end of the year, like renounce their rights to Klay Thompson, let him walk in free agency. The thing is, the Warriors would at least have some cap space to work with. To bring back a guy like DeMar DeRozan, you move Brandon Podziemski to a starting position next year. Maybe you move Jonathan Kuminga for something meaningful. I mean, Chicago's got a bunch of young talent. Maybe you get a Patrick Williams out of him or something of the sort. It's a mess. And honestly, like the team as a whole, when it comes to like defense or whatever, they're not horrible, but they're not great either. They're really like they're 21st in the league in field goal percentage. Like that's not really where you want to be when it comes to like they don't get anything around the basket. Like I'm just gonna call it what it is. Like they really don't do anything around the fucking basket. It's like 3-pointers or nothing, and they're currently 27th in 2-pointers attempted in the league and 26th in 2-pointers made. And when you look at their defense, I mean, when it comes to blocks and steals, they're 29th in blocks and 27th in steals. So, honestly, like, there's a lot of small shit that they need to figure out. I mean, like, really, they're league average and pretty much everything else. I mean, you know, they're 14th in 3-point percentage, 17th in 2-point percentage, 15th in free throws, 10th in free throw percentage, 10th in defensive rebounds, 17th in field goals. So, like, really, they're very middle of the pack. And like this is a team that really needs something to put them over the hump. Honestly, like there may be a candidate for Zach LaVine as well. I know that's kind of crazy. But if you could trade Klay Thompson for Zach LaVine straight up, I'm sure the Bulls would love to get off his contract. And Klay Thompson's a guy with an expiring deal. You send him to Chicago, they can just let his contract expire and let him walk in free agency. Then if you're Stephen Curry, you get Zach LaVine, which, granted, Zach LaVine's not exactly the greatest defender in the world. He's a great isolation player, but that's unfortunately all there is. But if he were to go to a team like the Golden State Warriors, I feel like they would help him out with that shit. Zach LaVine hasn't really had like the cream of the crop to work with as far as teams go. You know, like Minnesota didn't do him really any favors, and Chicago really just said, here's the basketball, go score points. They never really emphasized defense. I mean, the Chicago Bulls have been a shitty defensive team for as long as I can remember. So, except for like when Derrick Rose played there and Tom Thibodeau was their coach. But the Chicago Bulls, since Zach LaVine is there, have never emphasized defense. So, if you get Zach LaVine and put him on a team like the Warriors, suddenly Steve Kerr is going to make him play defense, okay? Steve Kerr is going to make him be a part of a system and pass the ball and do things that he was never asked to do before. So, if you're the Warriors and you're looking to get off of Klay Thompson's contract, like, that's maybe one move that you can make that might pay dividends in another year or two. Maybe, or for all I know, even instantly. Who knows? If you're the Warriors, you might have to include some draft compensation with that, or a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, who is clearly decided he doesn't want to play for Steve Kerr anymore. So, I don't know. The Warriors are a very interesting team, but they have a lot of guards. They don't really have a bunch of wings, and they don't really have a bunch of crazy good front court players. So, this is a team that it's like, they might be able to move some pieces around. But as far as what those pieces will bring in remains yet to be determined. So, I don't know, man. It would be nice to see the Warriors make a bit of a turnaround here in the, around the trade deadline midway through the season, because I'm not used to seeing Golden State being 12th in the West out of 15 teams. That's pretty fucking wild if you ask me. Like, Memphis is 15-27, Golden State's 18-22. So, I don't know, man. Maybe you call Washington about Kyle Kuzma. I don't know, but it's just the idea. This team's a fucking horror story at the moment, and Stephen Curry needs some help. And honestly, if I'm the Warriors GM, you obviously don't want Stephen Curry to be disgruntled or request a trade, even though trading for Stephen Curry would be fucking impossible. There's only a handful of teams that would maybe be able to pull off such a thing. But, you still don't want to piss him off. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Expect Golden State to be very active in the next week or two here. The trade deadline is February 8th. I figure trade talks are really going to start ramping up this week. So, or at least towards the end of this week anyway. So, tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.